Hello everyone, I'm Natacha Orias, and with my classmate Natacha Rodriguez, we want to present our final assignment with the objective of showing evidence about our knowledge of text types. In this opportunity, we select two different types of text, a movie review and a recipe. Let's start. The first text analyzed is the movie review of Annette. The genre of this is a descriptive text because it is describing something, in this case the movie Annette. It uses technical language and does not include personal opinions on the matter. Next, we have the scaffolding, which is formed by three parts: general opening paragraph that introduces the topic, a series of paragraphs about the subject, and the concluding paragraph that signals the end of the text. In this case, the review begins with an introductory paragraph. This one begins by talking about the work of the director of the film in general terms. After this, the movie Annette is briefly introduced, which is the main theme of the movie review. Then are all the paragraphs about the subject, in this case the movie Annette. Throughout the review, he describes the way Carax worked as a director, and also named his most famous movies, such as Boy Meets Girls and Mavis Song. The author of the text describes in detail the musical Annette and compares it to other musicals such as A Star is Born and New York, New York. And finally, we have the concluding paragraph. The review ends with a quote of the director that says, "I hope to make a film one day that will be music." Here we can agree that Carax achieved his main goal, to do a musical. The most relevant grammatical features: first, the use of linking verbs, such as the verb to be, feel, and had been, like we see in the examples. It feels artificial, it is artificial, the sensibility has been passed, and Carax is comfortable. Then we have the use of adjectives to describe the movie, the ones in light blue: audacious, unabated, exhilarant, exuberant, artificial, and real. And finally, it is mostly in present tense. Annette is not just a musical, it feels artificial, and he doesn't worry about. And now, recurrence rules. In the next two examples, we have anaphoric procedures. Here is present pronominalization in a specific anaphoric reference. Here, French director is mentioned twice, but in different ways. First, we have his name, and then in order to avoid repetition, in the second sentence is he, indicating the same person. Then we have the second example. First, the author mentions theater and acting, and then he mentions it again using the pronoun they. Now we have repetition when an element reappears with the same form in the text. In the example, we can see that the phrase "the truth" is there 3 times in order to emphasize. Finally, coreference, which shows the use of two linguistic expressions to refer to an element previously mentioned. First, it is mentioned the name of the movie Annette, then the film is also mentioned by using the noun film this time. Now, progression rules. In the review, the most frequent one was constant thematic progression, in which the theme is the same but the rhyme is different. Here in yellow, we have the same theme, Carax, with 2 different rhymes. The first rhyme talks about the movies done by him, and the second rhyme names the movies. Here, once again in yellow, we have the theme, which is the same in both sentences, Henry, and the rhyme is different. Finally, we have connectivity rules that involves relations and connections. In terms of relation, the most frequent one was adjective plus noun collocation, due to the fact that in the review, the author was describing the director's work and the movie. Here we have some examples: sustained dialogue, gigantic score, soapy melodrama, self-destructive energy, and talented cast. Then in terms of connections, we have implicit connection, which are the punctuation marks such as full stop at the end of every paragraph, and commas to separate ideas in a paragraph. And finally, we have explicit connections that involves connectors such as adverbs and conjunctions. Here we have the subordinator where, the conjunction but, and another subordinator when. And here we can see adverbs such as obsessively and occasionally.
As my classmate already mentioned, my name is Natacha Rodriguez, and I'm going to continue with the second text, which corresponds to a recipe. Okay, so let's begin with the genre and function of the text. The recipe corresponds to an instructive text because it gives us information about how to achieve a goal. In this case, we have a text that explains us step by step in order to complete the recipe successfully. So now, let's move on to the scaffolding of the recipe. The text is organized in three main parts, which are the introductory paragraph, the materials needed for completing the procedure, and the sequence of steps in correct order to achieve the objective. So, let's explain each one of the parts. Firstly, we have the introductory paragraph. In this paragraph, the author shows us the title of the recipe that corresponds to the meal that is going to be prepared. In addition, it gives us a brief description of what a pizza is. After that, there is an opinion from the writer about the main topic. And finally, it is mentioned that it is a simple recipe in order to make clear its adaptability. The next part of the structure of the text are the materials needed for completing the recipe. In this part, the text is more specific. For example, it is mentioned the number of servings. In addition, there is a list of ingredients with the required quantities for each part that makes up the pizza. The final part is the sequence of steps to achieve the goal. This paragraph is the longest one, but it is the most relevant since it shows the reader in more detail each one of the steps to follow to complete the recipe successfully. Now, let's move on to the explanation of the most relevant grammatical features. In this recipe, it is present the use of imperatives. Remember that we can use it to give direct orders or instructions. So, let's see some examples from the text. The first example says, place a thick, flat baking tray in the oven and leave it to heat for at least 20 minutes. The other one says, add the garlic and continue to stir it and fry it for a further minute. In these two examples, the author gives the reader specific instructions to achieve a future action. Another grammatical feature present in the recipe is the use of adverbs. Adverbs give us in details how the action should be carried out. Let me exemplify with some extracts from the text. In the first example, the adverb carefully brings us extra information about the verb lay. In this case, the adverb answers the question, how should we carry out the action? In the second utterance, the same happens. The adverb thoroughly is modifying and describing the verb mix. The adverb answers the question how as well as the previous one. We can also find the use of technical language. In this case, the author uses the word mixture for better understanding by the reader. However, the author then uses the concept puree to refer to the same thing mentioned above. This time it's using a more formal and sophisticated word. Now, let's move on to the recurrence rules. Recurrence rules are elements that reappear in order to create coherence and cohesion. One type of recurrence rule present in the text is repetition. Look at the following example. In this paragraph, the word pizza reappears over and over again with the same form but in a different place. Another element present is the anaphoric reference. Look at this example. In this case, we are using the pronoun it to establish co-reference with the unit that was introduced at the beginning of the utterance. Co-reference is also present. In the following paragraph, the author uses the expression mixture as a reference to the element previously mentioned, which corresponds to the puree. Now I am going to explain the most relevant progression pattern present in the text. The constant thematic progression is the most frequent. This type of progression indicates that the item in the theme of the first clause is also selected as the theme of the following clause. The theme corresponds to our subject, and the rime is what is saying about the theme. In other words, the rime corresponds to the predicate. Let's explain with the following example. In the paragraph, the theme of the first and second clause is the sauce. However, the rime is different since both clauses are saying different ideas about the theme. So, the theme is the same, but the rime is different. The type of connectivity rules present in the text are the connections, either implicit or explicit, which are in charge of connect or link the sentences. Some examples of implicit connections are the punctuation marks, which are present in the whole text, as the following example shows. On the other hand, some examples of explicit connections are the use of adverbs that we already explained, and the use of the different types of conjunctions in order to demonstrate relation between sentences. So, check the following example.